The day I got into the car accident, Daniel was busy celebrating his childhood sweetheart Emily's birthday. "What are you being dramatic about this time? Can it wait until tomorrow?" he snapped impatiently. I calmly told him I wanted to break up. Daniel and Emily were laughing together, so sweet and clingy it was disgusting. Always the same thing. Everyone thought I was playing some kind of push and pull game, trying to get his attention. Until news of my engagement to my new boyfriend got out, that's when Daniel panicked and came running to apologize. I pried his fingers off my hand, one by one. "Get lost," I said coldly. I truly decided to break up with Daniel on a rainy night. We were on a business trip outside the city. When Emily called, he dropped everything and rushed off to her birthday party in a panic, leaving me behind. I faced the client alone, forced to smile through the entire meeting as he glared at me. After signing the contract myself, I drove back down the mountain. On the way, I crashed into a tree while trying to avoid a mudslide. After calling the police, I instinctively called Daniel. My hand was still shaking when he picked up. Thick blood was dripping down my cheek, my head spinning. As soon as I spoke, my voice cracked with sobs. "Daniel," but before I could finish, he cut me off, annoyed. "Claire, what are you throwing a fit about again? It's Emily's birthday. Can't whatever it is wait until tomorrow?" What was I throwing a fit about? My muddled brain played his words over and over again, slowly digesting their meaning. He thought I was jealous of Emily again, that I was trying to compete with her. I gripped the phone tighter and tried to sound calm. "Daniel, there's been a mudslide on the mountain. I crashed the car." His tone finally shifted slightly. "What did you say?" I repeated myself and waited in silence for his response. But after a long pause, all I heard on the other end was faint breathing and noisy background chatter. Eventually, he let out a short laugh. "Claire, what kind of trick is this now? If you were in a car accident, you should have called the police. I can't save you." A whirlwind of thoughts swirled in my head. The words I wanted to yell at him circled on my tongue. But in the end, I just said plainly, "Fine, let's break up." We had fought too many times because of Emily. Suddenly, it all felt so pointless. I didn't want to argue anymore. This time, the other end of the call went completely silent. Even the background noise seemed to pause for a moment. Then Daniel's voice came through, cold and indifferent. "Whatever you want." And then the line went dead. I heard laughter in the background, Emily and Daniel's friends teasing him. "Dan's fighting with his girlfriend again, always the same breakup drama. Aren't you tired of it?" Even though I'm a girl, I really can't stand girls like Claire, always so controlling and jealous. You guys better be careful. If you end up with a girl like that, don't say I didn't warn you. If you ask me, it's good they broke up. Suddenly, Daniel spoke up. "That's enough. She's just throwing a little tantrum. Who said we're breaking up?" The mood on the other end instantly lightened again. I quietly hung up the phone and let out a bitter laugh. It was always like this. Daniel let his friends tear me apart with their words, then left me with some vague, ambiguous line that gave me false hope. "What now, Daniel? This time, I'm really done with you." Daniel and I actually met by accident. Back then, he was the influential rich kid on campus, while I was just an orphan scraping by on student loans. He had come to the library looking for Emily. I had just finished working 3 part-time jobs and was heading back to study. In the elevator, my blood sugar crashed and I almost fainted. I leaned against the corner, waiting for the pounding in my chest to calm down. That's when a piece of chocolate suddenly appeared in front of my mouth. It was already unwrapped, the sweet cocoa scent lingering in the air. "You girls really need to take better care of yourselves." I opened my eyes. Daniel was holding some bags in one hand, that usual lazy smile on his face. His natural swagger stunned me. I was dazed, and when I didn't move, he straightened up, leaned in, and waved his hand in front of my face. "Can you see it now?" he asked. Snapping back to reality, I took the chocolate and thanked him softly. Daniel glanced at me for a moment, then pulled out a whole handful of chocolates from his pocket and stuffed them into my hand. "Remember to keep some candy with you from now on." As the elevator doors opened, he walked off coolly with the desserts he bought for Emily. We met again at a debate team gathering. He was admitted as a rare exception, while I was on the verge of quitting the club I loved because of financial pressure. He sat down beside me with a smile. What a coincidence. We meet again. What happened afterward was cliché and predictable. We got to know each other bit by bit, chatting here and there. Then one day, when I finally mustered up the courage to confess my feelings, Daniel showed up with a bracelet engraved with his and Emily's initials. He looked at me with genuine curiosity. Claire, would girls like this as a gift for a confession? All the courage I'd built up deflated like a popped balloon, vanishing in a pathetic silence. That's when I realized Daniel had liked Emily for a long time. Swallowing down the bitterness in my throat, I forced a smile. It's a great gift, she'll love it. I boxed up my feelings for Daniel and tucked them away. From that moment, I treated him like a normal friend. But Daniel's confession didn't go as planned. He filled the entire school field with flowers and proposed to Emily in front of everyone. Emily rejected him right there, in front of the crowd. Daniel laughed awkwardly, trying to play it off. Come on, man, let's not joke like that between brothers. After that, Emily went through one boyfriend after another, while Daniel always stayed by her side, playing the good friend, the loyal brother. Just like I threw myself into playing the part of Daniel's confidant. When Emily announced she was going abroad, Daniel didn't see her off. Instead, he asked me out for drinks. For the first time, I saw tears in his eyes. He mumbled, Claire, why couldn't she just turn around and look at me? Even once, why couldn't she give me a chance? I didn't have an answer for him. If I did, I could have answered myself. Why couldn't Daniel turn around and look at me, even just once? Why couldn't he give me a chance? All I could do was gently pat his back, trying to comfort both him and myself. You'll get through this. Maybe heaven finally heard my prayers. When snow blanketed the campus, Daniel stood outside my dorm building and handed me a jar full of chocolates. His breath came out in visible puffs from the cold, his hands rubbing together for warmth, but his eyes were bright, like they were filled with light that could illuminate my entire life. Claire, he said, I've fallen for you. Later we started dating. We graduated and walked hand in hand through year after year. Just as we were preparing to get married, Emily came back. Suddenly, I felt like a pitiful clown who had stolen someone else's happiness, my real self instantly exposed. Daniel began to drift away, distracted and distant. He started staying out late, making excuse after excuse to leave me behind for Emily. I began to argue with him, questioning him hysterically. Do you still have feelings for her? At first, Daniel tried to explain, but eventually all I got was silence. I can't even remember when it started, how he began looking at me with impatience. Claire, didn't you used to help me come up with ideas to win her over? You were so generous when you had a crush on me. What changed? So it turned out all the feelings I thought I had hidden so well had always been a joke to him. In the end, Daniel slammed the door and ran back to Emily. When I woke up in the hospital, my head was throbbing. The doctor told me I had a mild concussion and needed to stay for observation. My phone was filled with missed calls and messages from Daniel. Claire, why didn't you come home? About last night, I'm sorry. I drank too much and wasn't thinking straight. I'll take you to pick out the wedding dress next week. Please don't be upset anymore. Okay? Expressionless, I scrolled through them all until my eyes landed on a text from an unknown number. It was a photo. A man lay half naked in bed, his arm tangled in a woman's long hair. His waist and stomach were covered in red marks, unmistakably intimate. Right in the center of the image was a clear view of a familiar brown birthmark, Daniel's. I stared at it for a long moment. Then, nausea surged violently in my gut. I rushed to the sink and vomited, desperate to empty everything, even bile, out of my system. After a long while, I looked up at the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked haggard and exhausted. I tried to smile, but as my lips curved upward, tears began to fall. Disgusting. Claire, how did you end up like this? I blocked the unknown number and sent Daniel a message. Let's break up. I'll come get my things from the apartment in a few days. I'm quitting the job too, so you better hire someone new soon. Then I turned off my phone, for good. I wanted a clean break from everything in the past. But I didn't expect that the car accident would bring me an even bigger mess. After I crashed into the tree, the car behind me couldn't stop in time and rear-ended me. The driver's leg was punctured by a jutting branch, and he was in critical condition, his life hanging in the balance. Barely conscious, I lied and said I was his girlfriend, so I could sign the liability form. Then I passed out. When I woke up, the driver, now in a wheelchair, was sitting beside my bed, head tilted, looking at me. He was smiling like a lazy, oversized golden retriever. "I've lost my memory," he said. "The doctor told me you're my girlfriend, and looking at you, you really are my type." I suspected he hadn't just lost his memory, maybe something was wrong with his brain too. Because let's be honest, in my current state, I was far from anyone's definition of his type. I patiently explained everything that had happened and dragged him to get a full brain CT. Other than amnesia caused by the concussion, there was nothing else wrong. Still, he pouted and scrunched up his face like a wronged child. "Are you doubting our relationship?" Then he clung to me even more, insisting we share a double room in the hospital. Every day he brought me fruit and tried to arrange it like some kind of gourmet platter. I didn't know how to deal with him. After all, his condition was partly my fault. Thankfully, the doctor said he was slowly improving and should regain his memory soon. So when Daniel, Emily, and their group of buddies showed up with gifts to visit me, what they saw was this strange man, Hunter, sitting cheerfully by my bedside, slicing fruit and plating it with care. Emily clung to Daniel's arm and exclaimed, "Oh my God, who is that guy?" Daniel didn't say a word. His eyes were fixed on how close Hunter and I were sitting, especially our hands brushing lightly. His expression shifted unpredictably. Hunter frowned at them, then wheeled himself in front of me. "Do you all need something?" Daniel looked at me. His words clipped. "Claire, explain." Behind him, Emily and the rest of them stared at me with thinly veiled accusation. I scanned the faces that once made me feel sick with shame and bitterness. Almost without thinking, I reached out and held Hunter's hand, fingers intertwining. "As you can see," I said clearly, "this is my new boyfriend." The air went still. None of them had expected me, who had chased Daniel for years, to so effortlessly move on to someone else. But Hunter just gave a little hum and proudly puffed out his chest, as if he'd won some grand competition. The silence broke when Daniel suddenly shook off Emily's hand. His gaze swept across Hunter, then returned to me. "What does this mean?" I was about to answer when Hunter cut in sharply. "Hey man, are you hard of hearing or just slow? Didn't she just say I'm her boyfriend? What else do you think it means?" I said nothing, silently agreeing. Daniel's eyes locked onto mine, heavy with something unreadable. I was momentarily stunned. It had been a long time since I'd seen that kind of expression on his face, something between frustration, anger, and fleeting panic. The last time I saw it was when Emily rejected his grand confession and started dating that athletic guy from another school. So he could wear that look for me too, I thought. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Before I even realized it, tears were already rolling down my cheeks. I don't quite remember how it ended. I only remember Daniel smashing the gift basket and storming out, while Hunter, still in his wheelchair, furiously rolled over and kicked them out. Even outside the room, Daniel and the others lingered, clearly unwilling to leave. I could hear them whispering, not too loud but clear enough. "What the hell is wrong with Claire this time? She's not usually like this." "I swear, it really looks like you two are for real," someone outside the room said. "Let's bet on it. If I lose, drinks are on me." Inside the hospital room, Hunter gently wiped away my tears and let out a deep sigh. A long while later, after I'd calmed down, I looked up and met his gaze. He had that kind of hesitant expression, curious but worried he'd offend me. I couldn't help laughing at how cautious he looked. "If you want to ask something, just ask. You've already seen me at my lowest, most embarrassing moment. There's not much left to hide." Hunter thought for a moment, then said firmly, "Your ex-boyfriend wasn't a good guy." That caught my attention. "Oh, why do you say that?" He began counting on his fingers like a fortune teller, completely serious. His eyes lit up at the corners. From his facial features, he was clearly a natural flirt, weak to temptation, unreliable. Plus, his lips are thin, which means he probably lied a lot, smooth talker. And those dark circles under his eyes? Guy clearly doesn't sleep well or take care of his body. I raised an eyebrow. I had to admit he wasn't wrong. Noticing my surprise, Hunter grinned and launched into a full breakdown of face-reading insights, like he was giving a masterclass. Half an hour later, he looked very proud of himself. So, now you know what kind of guy to look for in the future, right? I played along and summarized. Someone with balanced, symmetrical features. Gentle-looking eyes, high nose bridge, cheerful, positive personality. Then I suddenly stopped. That sounded exactly like Hunter. Hunter snapped his fingers. Bingo, best boyfriend candidate right here. He gave me that wide, lazy puppy dog grin and leaned in, his warm breath brushing against my face. So, beautiful lady, would you consider giving me a chance? I pushed him away without a word, my silent refusal. But he didn't seem offended. He just kept smiling. I was just about to speak when he lifted his hand and pressed it gently against my lips. Don't say something like I only said that earlier to get rid of them. I was raised very strictly. If you say you're my girlfriend, then you have to take responsibility. My mouth opened, but what I actually wanted to ask was, have you gotten your memory back? Hunter turned his head away dramatically, refusing to answer. I bit back a smile, feeling lighter than I had in days. After that day, Daniel never came to see me again, which I was more than happy about. I finally had some peace and used my hospital stay as an excuse to take a proper break from everything. However, his group of buddies kept texting me long-winded explanations. Claire, that day, Daniel didn't mean what he said. He was just drunk. We egged him on. He still cares about you. When he saw the news about the mudslide, he freaked out. He was going insane worrying about you. He actually came that day, so we could all apologize on his behalf, but well, things didn't go as planned. You know Dan's not good with words. Please don't take it to heart. Forgive him. They sent paragraph after paragraph of rambling excuses. I didn't even bother reading them. I just blocked them all. On the day I was discharged, Hunter looked at me with pitiful puppy eyes. Claire, will you come visit me again? I crossed my arms. What if I don't? What if I leave and you report me for hit and run? He laughed. Then I'll order food tonight and wait for you to eat with me. I nodded and agreed, then turned and went back to the apartment. To avoid running into Daniel, I had specifically chosen a weekday. The apartment was quiet and empty. Only my belongings remained. Since the night Daniel slammed the door and left, he hadn't returned. I didn't have much to pack, just some clothes and documents. It took less than 30 minutes. I didn't even need a full suitcase. Right as I was dragging the suitcase toward the door, Daniel walked in with his key. The first thing he saw was me, about to leave. His hand, gripping the key, tightened and then loosened. His handsome lips pressed into a thin, tense line. Finally, Daniel looked at me, almost pleading. Claire, can we talk? Honestly, I wanted to slap him like the bold, independent heroine in some novel, lift my chin with pride, say coldly, there's nothing left to say. Then walk away without a backward glance, cutting ties with the past in one clean sweep. But as I looked at Daniel, the man who had been by my side for 5 years, I still agreed. I wanted to part peacefully. I owed that much to the version of myself who had once loved him deeply. Sitting with Daniel on the couch, I felt dazed. It had been so long since the two of us had sat together and talked calmly. It felt like a moment from a past life. During the years when Emily was studying abroad, Daniel and I actually had a few good years together. We dated like any ordinary couple, went to movies, kissed under the stars, talked about the future. Back then he told me, Claire, we'll always be together. Because of my background, Daniel's parents didn't like me at first, but he stood his ground, said he loved me, and that his marriage didn't need to be about power or money, just love. Later, when I spoke with his mom, Mrs. Chen, she told me she'd rarely seen Daniel so serious about anyone. You two better treat each other well, she'd said. From now on, I'm half your mother too. If that brat dares to mistreat you, just come to me. I'll set him straight. As an orphan, I'd always longed for a home. I really thought I'd finally found one. But in the end, it all turned out to be an illusion. I felt warmth on my hand and looked down. Daniel had reached out and was holding it. Instantly, that image of the photo, with its taunting, humiliating intimacy, flashed through my mind. I jerked my hand away, nausea rising in my throat. Say what you need to say, I told him flatly. I've already sent my resignation letter to your email. If needed, I can finish the handover tomorrow. Daniel's lips parted. He spoke carefully, like tiptoeing across glass. Claire, I already ordered the wedding dress you liked. It's in the living room. Do you want to try it on? That name, Claire. It felt so strange now. He hadn't called me that, tenderly, in almost a year. I looked up and saw the white wedding gown hanging in the middle of the room. Funny, I'd been so focused on packing I hadn't even noticed it. I used to love that dress so much, had begged the boutique to alter it again and again until it was exactly what I wanted. But now, looking at it, it seemed no different from any other piece of clothing. I gave a small, dry laugh and shook my head. No need. Some things, when they come too late, you just stop wanting them. Daniel flinched at the indifference in my eyes. His voice turned bitter and sharp. Claire, don't tell me you've actually fallen for that amnesiac pretty boy in the hospital. I looked into him. He's just some orphan with no family, no background. If you stay with him, what, are you planning to go back to living like you did in the past, scraping by, barely surviving? I slapped him. Hard. Daniel stared at me in disbelief, holding his face. You hit me, over some stranger? I stared back coldly. Daniel, have you forgotten? I'm an orphan too. When I was with you, it was never because of your money. At that moment I finally knew for certain there was no love left in my heart for Daniel. In the silence that followed, soft, melancholy music began playing. Torment each other until old age. Grief that refuses to let go. I glanced at his phone screen. The contact name lit up, Emily. I narrowed my eyes and gave a bitter smile. You're gonna keep Emily waiting? Go on, answer it. Daniel looked at me, torn between explaining and helplessly glancing at the phone that kept ringing. After a moment of hesitation, he picked up. Emily's sharp, tearful voice burst through immediately. Daniel, I'm so upset. My heart hurts so much. Can you come be with me? These years abroad have been miserable. I haven't been happy at all. Daniel panicked. Emily, where are you? I'll come right now. He hung up, then turned to me, eyes full of pleading. Claire, Emily's in trouble, Daniel said. Can we talk after I get back? I almost laughed out loud. I stood up, pulling my suitcase behind me, and brushed past him without hesitation. Don't bother, Daniel. Let's end things peacefully. Isn't Emily the girl you've been in love with for over 10 years, the one you could never forget? I paused and looked him straight in the eyes. I'm letting go now. You should be happy. Daniel stood frozen as I walked away, closing the door behind me on the place I had lived for 5 years. In the back of the cab, I was surprised by how calm I felt. When Hunter called to ask when I'd be back for dinner, I even had the energy to laugh and joke with him. I wasn't angry. I didn't feel sad. Maybe all those endless arguments with Daniel had already drained the love I once had for him. Everything I'd held on to later was just a matter of habit. And now, like breaking any bad habit, all it took was distance, no looking, no thinking. Give it time and you'll find there's nothing you can't let go of. Habits are like that. So are people. By the time I got back to the hospital, the food Hunter had ordered was already cold. The room was dim. He hadn't turned on the lights. He sat alone, staring blankly at the dishes on the table. For the first time, I saw a trace of loneliness on the face of the always smiling Hunter. Daniel's words echoed in my head, and a strange sense of shared sorrow came over me. I knocked on the door. Why didn't you eat first? When he saw me, he visibly relaxed and smiled as usual. Didn't we agree to eat together? I'm just keeping my promise. While we ate, Hunter asked casually, So, when you went back, did that scumbag give you any trouble? I raised an eyebrow and met his gaze directly. You seem very concerned about me. Have we met before? Don't lie. Your doctor said your brain's been fine for a while now. Hunter paused, then suddenly lifted his shirt, revealing a set of solid abs and a deep, shocking scar near his waist. I've got a matching one on my back, he said lightly. I got it during a fire at the orphanage when I was a kid. He smiled at me. Do you remember now? My eyes widened. Hunter? Your little Sam? When I was 10, a chubby, wide-eyed boy showed up at our orphanage. He was clueless and completely out of place among the sharp-eyed, attention-seeking kids, so nobody liked him. I was the only one who played with him. Then one night, a fire broke out. I was trapped inside. It was little Sam who ran into the flames and dragged me out. On the way out, a burning plank hit him, leaving a scar that would never fully heal. I remember holding his pudgy little hand in the hospital, crying uncontrollably. Sam, I don't know how I'll ever repay you, I'd said through my tears. He'd looked at me seriously and declared, You can marry me. But I'd refused without thinking. No, you're not cute. Pick a different wish." He burst into tears right then and there. The next day, when I went to find him and apologize, the orphanage director told me he'd been picked up by his family. I never saw him again. Now I studied Hunter's handsome, refined face, trying to find traces of the chubby boy from my memory. But soon I gave up. "You've really changed," I said quietly. Hunter chuckled. "Thanks for the compliment." He looked at me, eyes gleaming. "So, Claire, when do I get my life-saving reward?" I paused, hesitant. Even though I now knew Hunter was my childhood friend, it was still hard to tell if what he was saying now was real. A few years ago, maybe I would have believed in fairy tale reunions and long-lost love. But now, I couldn't help feeling that maybe Hunter was just chasing a fleeting excitement, like Daniel once did. Hunter took my hand gently and said, "It's okay, Claire. I'll give you time." "I've been living overseas for years," he added, almost shyly. "I'm not really familiar with anything around here. Once my leg heals, could you show me around the city?" He looked at me with those damp, soulful eyes, pleading, and honestly, with eyes like that, it was hard to say no. He was like a stray dog I once saw on the street. If you fed him patiently enough, he'd roll over and show you his warm, trusting belly. So I nodded. "Okay." Hunter's smile widened with joy. If he'd had a tail, it probably would have been wagging high in the air by then. In the days that followed, I patiently accompanied him through rehab. I watched him progress step by step, from the wheelchair to standing on his own, then slowly walking again. Once, he accidentally fell. Sweat beaded on his forehead, his face contorted in pain, and he couldn't help groaning. I hurried to help him back into the chair. Hunter tried to reassure me. "I'm fine. Just slipped a bit." Looking at him like that, an overwhelming wave of guilt surged inside me. "I'm sorry, Hunter. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't be like this." I wasn't stupid. Even if he never said it out loud, I could guess the truth. What were the chances of two people reuniting after so many years, and then both getting into a car accident on the same day? He must have followed me down the mountain that day. Hunter gave a low chuckle, then looked flustered when he saw my tears. "Don't cry, okay? I just didn't feel comfortable letting you go alone. It's not your fault." You shouldn't have said that, because hearing it only made me cry harder. "You're too good, Hunter," I whispered. Left with no other option, he hesitantly leaned closer, gently cupping my face in his hands. His lips were warm as he kissed away my tears. "Claire," he murmured, "for you. I'd still choose this, every time." We never spoke of that night again. Instead, we fell back into a rhythm, me helping him through rehab, paying his medical bills, checking in on his progress. The only difference was, I hired a professional nurse to look after him. I wanted to avoid being alone with him too much. Hunter never complained. No matter when I visited, he always greeted me with the same bright, genuine smile. If his housekeeper hadn't come to find me, I might have quietly left the city once his legs healed, moved on, erased everything, and started a new life somewhere far away. I admit it, I had developed feelings for Hunter. But once you've been burned, even a shadow feels like a flame. I wasn't going to gamble on someone's sincerity ever again. In the hospital garden, Hunter's housekeeper handed me a thick file. Inside was every record of my scholarships and sponsorships from middle school through college, along with copies of the thank you letters I'd written to my anonymous benefactor over the years. I stared at the documents, stunned. All this time, it had been Hunter supporting me. The elderly man gave a solemn nod. "Mr. Hunter actually forbade me from contacting you privately. But that child suffered so much, I couldn't bear it anymore. So I took the liberty of reaching out." He looked at me, eyes full of earnest sincerity. "I've heard about your story. I understand your hesitation. But please know, Mr. Hunter's feelings for you aren't just a passing fancy." After he was found and brought home, both his parents had already passed. His relatives divided up the family estate. He endured humiliation for over 10 years and only managed to reclaim his parents' legacy 6 months ago. Once the company stabilized, he heard about you and came back to find you. The old man sighed. "Miss Claire, I'm not telling you this to pressure you. I just hope you can see his sincerity. Mr. Hunter has been quietly watching over you for many years." After he left, I sat alone in the garden for a long time. Only when the evening breeze brushed against my cheeks did I finally let out a long breath, stand up, and walk toward the hospital building. I gently pushed open Hunter's room door. I told them, I said, I don't need a caregiver. Hunter was pushing against the wheelchair with both hands, struggling to stand. It wasn't until I stepped forward to support him that he realized it was me who had come in. His entire body froze. Claire, I didn't want you to see me like this. I shook my head, holding back tears. You've already come this far. Being able to stand this soon is amazing. I helped him back into bed and whispered, Why didn't you tell me that all these years it was you who was supporting me? Hunter blinked in surprise, then gave a small, bitter smile. So you found out. I didn't want you to feel obligated, like you had to be with me out of pity or some sense of debt. I just wanted you to be happy, Claire. That's all I ever wanted. Everything I did willingly. You don't owe me anything. Just like back at the orphanage, there were so many other kids, but you were the only one who walked toward me without hesitation. That was enough for me. I leaned in and wrapped my arms around him. I'm sorry, Hunter. He instinctively hugged me back, still murmuring those words about how I didn't owe him anything, until I kissed him, silencing the rest. I'm sorry, Hunter, I said again softly. It took me until today to realize. While I was busy chasing someone who never looked back, you were always behind me. When the kiss finally ended, I opened my eyes to find Hunter flushed from ear to ear, his face practically glowing red, unsure of what to do with his hands. Still, even flustered, he was surprisingly gentle. Then suddenly, something seemed to occur to him, and his face turned pale. You're not leaving again, are you? Like last time, hiring a nurse and disappearing for good? I looked him in the eyes and slowly shook my head. No, I'm not going anywhere. I haven't repaid that silly little boy who saved my life yet. How could I leave? In that moment, something sparkled in his eyes. I was just about to tease him for getting misty-eyed so easily, but before I could speak, he grabbed the back of my head and pulled me into his arms. Watch your leg, I warned, but he didn't seem to care. It was a kiss that was fierce, deep, and unforgettable. By the time I pushed him away, dazed and out of breath, he was already lightly kissing my forehead again. Claire, he said softly, you've taken all 3 of my first kisses. You better take responsibility. I didn't bother correcting his math. I just smiled and nodded. Maybe it was because I was in such a good mood, but from then on, Hunter's recovery accelerated like magic. Within just 2 weeks, he was already walking again, still a little thin, but otherwise nearly indistinguishable from anyone else. It took me a moment to catch on. I narrowed my eyes and gave him a suspicious look. Were you faking it? Playing the sympathy card to mess with me? Hunter pulled me into his arms with an exaggerated pout. Of course not. I really was in pain, but seeing my Claire gave me all the motivation I needed. I called him a smooth-talking liar, but he just grinned and leaned in, clinging to me like glue. After we confirmed our relationship, he stopped pretending to be the shy, innocent puppy. I rubbed my sore cheeks and muttered that I'd basically let a wolf in through the front door. As fall settled in, Hunter's leg had fully healed. I kept my promise and took him on a tour around the city where I'd grown up. The first stop was the orphanage we'd both come from. The old director, now retired, had never left. Instead, she stayed to continue helping the kids. When she saw me, her face lit up. Claire, those clothes and blankets you donated last time, the children love them. I smiled. It's the least I can do. Then the director looked behind me, eyes narrowing slightly. She lowered her voice and asked, That's your boyfriend, right? Daniel hasn't visited once in all these years. He's probably too busy. I couldn't blame her for mistaking Hunter for Daniel. I followed her gaze. Hunter was pretending not to listen, but his ears were clearly perked up. I shook my head. Not him, but he is my boyfriend. Hunter's mood visibly lifted. He came over and gave my waist a little squeeze, then strolled off with his hands behind his back, like a proper gentleman doing rounds. I squinted at him smugly, suddenly not wanting him to get too full of himself. So I turned to the director with a mischievous grin. Director, take a good look. Does he seem familiar to you? The director adjusted her glasses, which had started to slip down her nose. The director waved Hunter over. He gritted his teeth and walked over stiffly, arms and legs moving awkwardly, like a robot. The director studied him for a moment, then said hesitantly, You're that chubby little boy who used to cry whenever he saw a cockroach, aren't you? Hunter gave a reluctant nod. The director patted his shoulder with satisfaction. Not bad. You really grew into yourself. I laughed so hard I nearly doubled over. That night, karma came for me. Hunter pinned me to the bed, his face stormy, the corners of my eyes already glistening with involuntary tears. Claire, he asked over and over, was it really that funny? Huh? Was it that funny? Running into Daniel again was a complete accident. I used to think erasing Daniel from my memory would be this long, painful process. But in reality, just 2 or 3 days after being with Hunter, I could barely recall him at all. So much so that when he appeared in front of me, I didn't even recognize him at first. That day, Hunter and I had gone to pick up our custom-made wedding rings. Feeling smug, he insisted I wear mine right there in the mall, dragging me through store after store, while flashing the ring and dropping not-so-subtle hints. Did you know my fiancé and I are getting married? He'd say offhandedly to every shop assistant. Flustered, they'd quickly switch to overly enthusiastic customer service mode. Congratulations, sir. That's wonderful news. We have some perfect pieces for the happy couple. That's when Daniel showed up, with Emily trailing behind, her small belly slightly showing. He froze when he saw me, his gaze dropping to the matching rings on mine and Hunter's hands. His face darkened instantly. Ignoring Emily's cries behind him, he stormed forward and grabbed my arm in a death grip. His eyes were bloodshot, but his voice trembled. Claire, how could you? Hunter was still basking in the compliments from the store staff, and because of where Daniel and Emily approached from, he hadn't even noticed I was being accosted. For a moment I was genuinely stunned. But then I smiled, lifted my chin, and pointed toward Emily. Isn't your long-lost dream girl standing right there? What are you doing grabbing me? Daniel stiffened, his expression twisting in confusion and anger. Claire, it's not what you think. But I was already tired of this. I pried his fingers off my arm one by one. Get lost, Daniel. I'm done with rotten leftovers. At that point, the truth didn't matter anymore. I didn't care. If Hunter had seen Daniel right then, he definitely would have thrown a jealous fit, and my little demon wouldn't have been able to protect himself. That's when Emily finally ran up too, glaring at me with that arrogant, entitled look she always wore. Bookmark, go back. I shoved Daniel's hand toward her and smiled sweetly. Here, take your spoiled produce. Keep a tighter leash on him next time. He's always sniffing around where he doesn't belong. Wouldn't want him catching anything. And please, now that you're expecting, maybe try settling down? Then, without giving them a chance to react, I turned to Hunter. Let's go. We're done here. Next door. What I didn't expect was that Daniel and Emily would shamelessly follow us into the next boutique. I twitched at the corner of my mouth. Great. No more avoiding them now. Sure enough, the moment Hunter spotted the pair, he wrapped an arm around my waist on instinct. Emily rolled her eyes dramatically and gave him a once-over. Wow. Clingy much, little sugar baby? Hunter looked at me, confused, silently mouthing, Sugar baby? I gave him an innocent look. Don't ask me. Emily waltzed into the store like she owned it, head held high and pointed at the racks. This one, and that one, we'll take them all. Every single piece she picked had been ones I'd just tried on. She was making a statement. She even glared at me while saying smugly, some people really shouldn't pretend to be something they're not. Just stick to your thrift store chic. Suits you better anyway. I pressed my lips together, struggling not to laugh. But Emily mistook it for shame, and her grin widened. Claire, she said, tossing her hair, if you get down and help me put on my shoes, maybe I'll be generous enough to pay for your things. How about that? Hunter stepped forward immediately, ready to say something. I held Hunter back by the arm and shook my head. The next moment, the store clerk looked apologetically at Emily. I'm sorry, Miss Emily, but this outfit has already been reserved by Miss Claire. Emily was stunned for a second, then laughed in disbelief. I'll pay more. You hear me? Sell it to me for a higher price. The clerk bowed even lower. Apologies, miss. Mr. Hunter holds one of our store's black cards, which comes with priority privileges. We do have other excellent pieces. Would you like to take a look? The moment those words left her mouth, Emily turned to look at me in complete disbelief, grinding her teeth so hard I thought she might crack a crown. Even Daniel's expression darkened. Hunter slipped his arm around my shoulders and lifted his black card with a smug smile. Sorry about that, he said. Not sorry at all. Then he grabbed the shopping bags from the clerk and walked off proudly with me in tow. Back in the car, we looked at each other and burst out laughing. After that day, I never saw Daniel or Emily again. Years later, I heard they were going through a dramatic divorce, and that the child wasn't even Daniel's biological son. The news made Daniel a laughingstock in social circles for a while. But none of that had anything to do with me anymore. Hunter and I didn't have a lavish wedding. We didn't have many people we needed to invite. But during the ceremony, when the officiant was reading our vows, Hunter held my hand so tightly he nearly broke down in tears. We made our lifelong promises in the warm blessings of the old orphanage director and Hunter's loyal housekeeper. As for Daniel, it wasn't until I had completely disappeared from his life that he realized, aside from the number he'd been blocked on and the deactivated social media accounts, he had no way to reach me at all. He didn't even know which orphanage I'd grown up in. I'd told him more than once that I wanted to take him back there. But what did he say back then? Too busy. No time. After getting turned down so many times, I'd stopped bringing it up. If there had ever been a chance, Daniel would have wanted to tell me that, even when Emily came back, he never planned on abandoning me. But by then, showing kindness to Emily had become second nature. Deep in his blood. An old reflex from his teenage years that never fully faded. Even Daniel knew that wasn't love. When his friends joked that he was henpecked, he lashed out at me instead, thinking that preserving his pride as a man was just what you did. What he didn't expect was that defending that pride would cost him everything. The morning after the party, he woke up hungover and dazed to find Emily lying beside him. Her eyes were soft, waiting for affection. But he felt nothing. No joy, no satisfaction, just one overwhelming thought. It's over with Claire. Later, he married Emily because of the pregnancy. But the marriage was far from happy. Emily's spoiled and willful nature, which hadn't been obvious when they were just friends, came out in full force. Daniel was exhausted. Still, for the sake of the child, he endured. He came home less and less, staying out longer and longer, thinking this was just what life had in store for him. Until his son turned 5. After a terrible car accident left the boy with major blood loss, Daniel rushed to the hospital in a panic, only to be told the blood types didn't match. He wasn't the father. In that moment, he almost laughed out loud. So this was his life. The past few years had been nothing but a cruel joke. After that, on countless lonely nights, Daniel would think of me, of Claire, of the things he wished he'd said, of the apology he never gave, of the second chance he desperately wanted. But Daniel knew deep down it was too late. On the road of life, he and I would never cross paths again. The end.